After taking birth, the first things that we observe is different colors surrounding us, different sounds, touches, tastes, smells, and then slowly we grow up and we further objectify the observable universe with five principal categories of objects, namely the solid, liquid, gas, plasma, or fire, or space. For how the objectification actually works is the mechanism of objectification needs the discussion of continuity, and that is a topic which we need to discuss in much more detail, and that's not the scope for of this video right now, so that we are going to discuss later. But the main mechanism of objectifying anything in this whole continuum of this panorama of the universe is basically through discontinuation. However, we can understand that the discontinuation is the result of different colors, sounds, touches, tastes, and smell. So yeah, we need to discuss it further. However, so these are the things that one observes after taking birth, and slowly uh, upon growing up, one asks the questions that why at all we perceive this color or smell or taste or anything, and also what are the reason of having these objects, this solid, liquid, gas, fire, and space in our observable universe. And that is basically the first step to become a philosopher. So anyone who is asking questions why this is happening or why that is happening is actually a good sign to become a philosopher. So the first question a human being should ask is why these observations happening at all, the solid, liquid, gas, plasma, fire, space. And also the composition of them is the color, sound, taste, touch, and smell. Each object has its own composition in different amounts. So object can be blue in color, another can be red in color. It can have different touch sensation. Also, it can have taste or no taste. So yeah, so this can happen. And a questioner will definitely ask why this is having any color at all, why this is not having any color at all, what's the origin of the sound, touch, taste, and smell. And anyone who is asking these questions, he is observing only the actions, that is the color, the sound, the touch, taste, and smell. But that's not a satisfying answer, because it's impossible to know what's actually happening. So to further clarify or to further explain things, he superimposes different actions. So for example, for color, he develops science which can explain that, oh, the color is due to scattering or reflection or absorption followed by emission, etc. Sound is because the vibration of the medium. These are all explanation based on what? Based on a cause which is called as energy, that is superimposed. No one can know what energy is, but the introduction of energy as the cause for all these actions, which is also superimposed to justify why we are perceiving a color at all, or why we are perceiving a sound at all, within these different objects throughout the universe. So these are the things that we observe for any object: color, smell, taste, sound, and touch. And these are the actions, I mean, very few of them, which has the capacity to develop these observations, the color, smell, etc. So these actions are basically characteristic for a particular object. So one action cannot happen for the other object. Let's say the volatility of a rock is different compared to the water, uh, also the solvation of a plastic is different than the sugar, like that. So these actions are dependent on specific objects, and depending on that, each specific object has different color, smell, taste, etc. So the energy, we call that the reason of all these actions are energy. But we further superimposes different types of energy for each action. So light is responsible for these phenomena, reflection, scattering, etc. Thermal energy is responsible for the volatility. Solvation energy, which is nothing but thermal energy, is responsible for solvation. Kinetic energy, potential energy, etc., are responsible for the vibration of medium when the two objects are colliding each other. So the kinetic energy is bringing them close so that they can collide each other, and that collision introduces the vibration in the medium, which is the reason for sound, what we explain. And also there is the thermal energy, the electromagnetic energy, etc., which can be called as the reason for perceiving the hotness or coldness on the surface of an object when we are touching it by our skin, right? So this is how we introduce a cause as energy. The cause which we are saying that is responsible for all sorts of actions that is going on, and all the actions are basically the objects that we are perceiving, and each object is having different color, smell, taste, etc., depending on the characteristic actions they are possessing, right? So this is how the superimposition basically works, but this is just very simplified way to explain what superimposition is. It needs the introduction of cause and effect principle, etc. So we will discuss it in further detail, but for now, just understand how a philosopher has to introduce a cause to explain certain phenomena in the universe. Those causes cannot be explained or cannot be known, because whenever you try to know something, you will inevitably end up in producing action. So we can only perceive or observe actions either through our sense organs or through any instrument that we are devising to measure the action. This is simple fact. Okay. So there is a diagram that can be helpful to understand the superimposition in short. So let us go through it step by step. So any sense perception that we have, the color, taste, smell, etc., are can be called as the effect that we are perceiving, and those effects are nothing but actions, because only action can be perceived. And we have all sorts of actions throughout the universe, and based on those different actions we are having different colors, different touch sensation, etc. And due to that we are helpless but to objectify the whole universe in solid, liquid, etc. And not only in solid, we are we are also objectifying the category of solid in different types of solids. Whole varieties of solids are there, examples. So this is how we are helpless but to objectify our whole universe through discontinuation. And the philosopher will ask the question, why at all we are perceiving any sense perception, why at all we have objects surrounding us. All those questions need to be answered, and to answer those questions, the introduction of a cause or multiple cause has to be there, because introduction means it is not there, but we are saying, or we are helpless but to introduce it to explain certain phenomena in the universe. For example, we see color. We are helpless but to say that there has to be light in order to see the color. But no one can perceive what is light, because the moment you want to see or you want to know what is light, you need a detector or another object. That object will interact with the light, and what you will see is another action. So there is no way you can know what is energy, any form of energy. And also there is no way you can know any form of object. But that's okay. So whoever is asking these questions, why, they has to, after a certain period of deep thinking, they are introducing these causes that can successfully uh, explain those actions, and this goes on. So let's say why this object is like that, introduces the energy, then why further, why will bring the concept of matter, the molecules, the atom, etc., and it will go on. So any attempt of explanation of any certain action will instantly bring the cause, which is unreal, but it can explain the similar types of actions. For example, a fire can burn a hydrocarbon. This is a fact. So we take that example, we write down the things, that all the informations for that action, that is the hydrocarbon, which is the compound of carbon and hydrogen mostly. What is the fire can be produced by collision of two rocks or two metals, like that. And that action, whenever you will perform in some other related compound, other hydrocarbon of different appearance, for example, it will produce the same fire, right? So it doesn't mean that the explanation that you are giving, the using a particular frame of reference, that frame of reference cannot be true. The frame of reference can work as a successful frame of reference because the whole frame of reference is based on a fact. So if it is well hypothesized, then it will work for most of the similar type of actions. Uh, you see what I mean? So it's like that. And this is how the superimposition is actually working. And to explain the different sorts of introduction or introduced phenomena like energy and all sorts of different actions, like the absorption emission phenomena or the scattering and all those things, you need a solid reasoning, because without reasoning no one will accept it. And the very essence of introducing the reasoning is that uh, the unreality of this superimposition, unreality in terms of I mean, let's say we are saying that there has to be energy. We don't know what it is. We are calling it energy. So energy, the concept of energy is basically superimposed. And to explain that, we need to say, or we need to introduce different sorts of reasoning. Like this is what can be called as energy. This will be the characteristic of an energy, like that. And any attempt to explain an action will introduce further superimposition. And to explain them, you need the reasoning. Reasoning means the way of proving your point that you are saying to the people. There is a whole spectrum of reasoning which developed upon the evolution of the mankind, and the whole spectrum consists of this from lowest to highest. So in the lowest, when you have nothing to say, you have no intelligence to reason, you are going to fight. Then it becomes a quarrel, then an argue, and then the logic will come, and finally the purified mode of reasoning is the mathematics, which is used in science. So all the scientific knowledge or information that we see or learn, those are introduced to explain certain fact of the nature, and to reason each introduction or to reason each introduced phenomena, we take the help of mathematics so that we can prove that this is capable of taking as a standard model for which can be used for similar types of action, to explain similar types of action, or it can further can be used for creating new things, right? So for example, there is no three dimension, but three dimension can be useful for creating different shapes, like that. I mean, we will discuss it later, that how the introduction of three dimension takes place by us. uh, that is a different topic, different video. Anyway, and also the with the reasoning there will come the expertise in language, in another expertise which can be helpful in conducting with people, etc. So these are the characteristic things that the philosopher will have to develop in order to prove his point, right? And then comes the believer. So a believer is one who basically doesn't take the necessary pain or the struggle to discover any phenomena by himself or herself. What he does is basically accepts what a philosopher said or a witness said. So a witness is basically an observer who observes the thing or the object as it is. Who will come, who or what is the criteria of the witness. But the problem with the believer is that he is in such a situation where he is helpless, or she is helpless, but to believe what the philosopher is saying or what the witness is saying, because he is not utilizing his power to discover something. He has tremendous amount of power, but he is not willing to discover by utilizing that power. So we are calling them as believer, and most of us are believer. We go to school to learn something, and mostly we don't indulge our brain to use our intellect in such a way that we can know from the very scratch of how actually those discovering came. I mean, most of us, they just take the findings of a researcher or of a philosopher as granted in the textbooks or in the research papers. Yeah, most of us are in such a situation. I mean, everything that we use, I'm not saying about the scientific community, even inside the scientific community or outside. I mean, most of us are just saying the things or believing the things that the earlier people has told us, and we are continuing doing that. So that's the situation of a believer. And then comes the witness. So a witness is one who observes everything as it is, and he also observes the attempt of a philosopher to explain some phenomena by introducing unreal superimposed causes. And also he sees a believer, the situation of a believer, and by observing he comes to a conclusion, or to a fact, that neither object or nor energy can be actually known. What we can know is only our action or behavior or communication. And any attempt of explaining this action will introduce superimposition. But that is not bad. But he knows now that this is unreal. But that unreal superimposed phenomenon can help us to create further. So for example, the three dimension is superimposed, but the three dimension helps us to create things of different shapes by measuring the length, etc. And also there are any frame of reference or any phenomena that we use to explain certain actions happening in the nature. will help us to create similar things. Not everything. Related type of things we can create by using those standard models of frame of references. So yeah, so the witness knows or witness observes that what's going on in reality, what is going on. Neither the energy nor the object can be actually be known. So this is the situation of a witness. So if we say that what is a real evolution in this situation, so real evolution has to be like a person who is believing everything and he is fed up of believing everything and he started asking questions. Why this is happening like that? Why this is happening like that? Okay, someone discovered something, but I want to go through that. I don't want to believe. I just want to go through that. It can be someone else's discovery. It can be his own discovery by taking a certain form of object, let's say anything, an object, how we are perceiving the object. What are the things required to perceive an object? Like that. How the color is forming, how we are interpreting the actions that is responsible for generating a color, like that. So you will, if someone proceeds like that with little bit knowledge of science and the literature, whatever you say it, with little bit background of education, he will be able to know that this is how everything works. And that will make him the philosopher. So he will be able to explain some things. I mean, he will still be a believer that I'm able to explain something. But after some point, after some time, he will come to a point or she will come to a point where the person will begin to realize that nothing can be known, because any attempt of knowing something will change the object that he or she wants to know. And that's the state of a witness who basically knows that nothing can be known. Yeah, this is the fact. So is superimposition then bad? Definitely not. It's saving a lot of lives by producing medicines and all sorts of required stuff, the electricity and you name it. There is a lot of discovery, but it has to be for uh, knowing the nature, how it works. And furthermore, during this process, the the superimposition should help one to know himself or herself. That's the main goal of this whole creation, or the creating ability. And if someone is creating mostly out of desire or lust to fulfill the comfort or the pleasure, and making stuffs that is not good for the environment and not good for, definitely if something is bad, it is bad for himself or herself, but he is not able to realize it. So anything out of greed and lust is bound to be dangerous for that person, as well as the other, all the other creature who are living in the planet. So this is another thing to consider. Each points will be discussed separately in much more detail. So this is just preliminary videos that I'm making right now. And also, the only way to know us is through the superimposition. I mean, there cannot be any other way which can help us to know who we are. And with the help of science and philosophy, we are more than equipped to know who we are. And that is the actual satisfaction that one can get in his lifetime or in her lifetime. So it's not like you leave everything and become a monk or something like that, but it's it's something else. One has to feel it. One has to experience it with his own creation or with his own experience, whatever. It's the most beautiful thing that one can experience in his or in her lifetime. So all the best, and stay with me if you want to explore how the things are working, and also stay with all the other people who try to help others in realizing or in discovering who actually they are.